God said it's going to rain, it's going to rain. If God said he's going to save them, he's going to save them. If God said that he is your Jehovah Jireh and he'll provide, he ain't lying. We talked about the liar last week, and it ain't God. If he said that he's your Jehovah Jireh, he's going to be your provider. If God said it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Just take it in for a moment. Just stop for a moment and let the Spirit of God just build your faith. For those that have been losing sleep, it's going to rain. For those that feel like you don't know the way out, it's going to rain. For those that feel like you're stuck on your job and there's no end in sight, it's going to rain. It's coming. And it's not going to be just rain. It's going to be an abundance amount of rain. Yeah. And there's some things that I wanted to just point out that I noticed here. It's just a couple things, and it's not just Kelly's. This is the Kelly James version. Is nothing indicates that Elijah prayed a rain prayer. There wasn't any prayer that he prayed. Elijah, it said that he went up to Mount Carmel and he bowed down to the ground and he put his face between his knees and he says to his servant, "Go up, look toward the sea." Now, I don't know if that was his posture of prayer. I don't know if it was just him getting away. I'm not saying he wasn't praying. I'm just saying that it was no special prayer that was prayed. I believe that Elijah, Kelly's opinion, I believe Elijah was living on the promise and not the current real-time prayer. I think he already knew that rain was coming. He wasn't praying that God would back him up on what he just declared. I believe that he was just positioning himself. He was keeping himself in a posture of expectation, a posture of worship, because God had already spoken, and he was speaking it over everyone that abundance of rain is coming. Why? Because he had promised rain. Elijah wasn't trying to convince God. He wasn't trying to convince God. He was aligning himself with God. You said it was going to rain, and I believe that it's going to rain. I noticed another thing. Elijah never was looking. He was never looking at the clouds. Now think about that kind of faith. He says it's going to rain, and he sends somebody else to go look for clouds. He wasn't looking at the sky. He wasn't looking at the drought. He had his eyes on the Lord. He had other people looking. Sometimes you have to shut out what you see so you can hear. For us, sometimes that means I've got to open up the Bible instead of my social media accounts. Because scrolling ain't getting you there. I says, I'm gonna send somebody else to look. Sometimes you gotta go. I'm here to hear from the Lord. I'm not going to see what's in the political news of today. That's for somebody else to go look. You go look. I'm going to keep my eyes on expecting to see the abundance of rain. Sometimes you have to thank God before you see the answer. You got to serve while you're waiting. You have to give while you're still believing. You have to come to church when you don't feel like. What is that? That says, listen, I'm going to keep my eyes on the Lord. I'm not going to allow the noise of all life around me. I'll send somebody else to go look for the miracle. I'm going to keep my eyes on the miracle maker. Yeah. And then I'm closing. This is Elijah went up to the top of Carmel. And then he bowed down to the ground. He put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, "Go up now. Look toward the sea." So he went up and he looked and said, "There is nothing." And 7 times he said, "Go again." And then it came to pass the 7th time that he said, "There is a cloud as small as a man's hand, rising up out of the sea." So he said, "Go up, say to Ahab, prepare your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." And now it happened in the meantime that the sky became black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy rain. There was a heavy rain. The miracle came to pass. So my question is what is the promise? My other question is, what are you going to do about it? This is Sunday stuff, but what are you going to do about it on Monday? Because I believe that even as we're talking today, there's some promises that have been renewed in your heart again. Maybe. I pray that it has. And here's the thing. If you don't know a promise from God, here's what my suggestion for you is go on a fast. Begin to seek the Lord. If there's some things that you go, God, I need some direction, you've just got to hit the carpet. You got to hit your face and begin to seek the Lord. Say, God, what is the promise that you have in my life? So the question is not only what is the promise, but what are you going to do about it? God had spoken. Now Elijah had a choice. Would he sit still? Because 3 years could have easily turned into 30 years. Would he sit still, or would he live like God's promise was already on the way? Here's what I'm declaring over your life today. You're going to start living like God's promise is on the way. This up and down faith, you're on the mountain, in the valley, trying to figure out circumstances, or has your faith going crazy and you're all over the radar with your faith, that's going to end today. You're going to begin to regulate your faith, and you're going to begin to see that God has promised some things, and I'm going to live my life like His promise is on the way. Because here's the thing, we can be in agreement with God, but not in alignment with God. We can be in agreement with God. Yeah, God, I know you're faithful. I know you're able. I know what you've told me. But we can be way out of line with God, and we're trying to figure out why we're up and down with our faith. It's because agreement and alignment have to be in unity together. So we got to see that alignment often leads to action. Before, in verse 1, it was the promise. Verse 41, it was go time. He stepped out and he says, I hear rain coming. And it's not just an ordinary rain, it's the abundance of rain. So here's what we're going to do. He prayed and then he prepared. He prepared. He called his servant. He called his servant. Said, I want you to go. I want you to look for the cloud. Look for the cloud 7 times. I'm sure the servant's like, how many times, bro, am I going back? I don't see anything. It's still dry, broken up, messed up. No water in the streams, no water in the river. And you're wanting me to keep looking for clouds. There's no clouds. There hasn't been any clouds for 3 years. You want me to keep looking for a cloud? And he says, no, you understand. We've been in agreement, but now we have to align with what God has said. So he prayed and he prepared and he waited. He kept sending the servant. He refused to quit. He kept saying, listen, he could have stopped at 6. He could have stopped at 4. But he says, go look again. Keep looking until he comes back. This servant, thank God this servant was looking intently. He come back and says, listen, ain't much. You see my hand? That's about what I see. And I believe that's when King Elijah says, well, he did say, go tell Ahab that he needs to get out of town before he gets flooded away. Tell him to get his chariot, hook up, and get out because the rain is coming. That is an alignment. That's alignment with agreement where it comes together. Elijah didn't make it rain. He simply lived his life like rain was coming. He lived his life like rain is coming. And we don't make God's promises come to pass. We simply live our life and align our life like we believe they will come to pass. Yeah. So what does this look like in a practical thing? How do I walk this out? How to put legs on this part? Maybe your marriage hasn't changed, but you forgive anyway. Maybe your finances haven't changed, but you honor God with your tithes and offering anyway. Or maybe your healing hasn't come yet. You keep praying and trusting God, keep believing that it's coming. Maybe the opportunity hasn't opened up, but I'm going to still keep bettering myself. I'm going to still keep educating myself. I'm still going to prepare myself that when the opportunity comes, I can walk through that door with confidence because I've been aligned with the promise. Not just praying over the promise, but now I'm aligned with the promise. Or maybe the answer hasn't arrived, but you keep trusting and serving anyway.
Thank you so much for joining us. I pray that this was a resource and a blessing. Go to our webpage, POLC.CC, to connect with us on all of the things that we're doing. And we want to stay connected to you because we believe God has some great things for you.